welcome to the Sanctuary, a safe space to speak from the heart. I'm your host, Israel, and my guest today is Nicole Marchand, a dietitian. And you know what? I remember seeing your there was a post on your LinkedIn, and I was like, oh wait, I don't even think of food that way. So let's kind of rewind. How did you get into doing what you do? Like, how did that all start?
hmm Well, I heard about the profession when I was younger. I was probably, I don't know, in my mid-teens, I would say. So, like heading into high school, I had actually heard about, or I learned about the profession because I had some digestive issues in my mid-teens. So, I went to a dietitian, and really, that was the start of it for me. I automatically wanted to do that for a living, and I had went through high school doing my best because I knew exactly what I was going to do, and then I went to the university that I wanted to go to for it, and I worked really hard. And as soon as I graduated, well, I shouldn't say as soon as I graduated, because after university I took a couple years off.
Mm,
I just needed a break from everything,
mm-hmm,
and then I registered as a dietitian, and that was in 2012. And I've been a
mm.
registered dietitian for 11 years now, I suppose, if that math is
Wow,
right, I guess.
that is a long,
nine
long,
years,
long
9 years.
time.
I don't know.
I guess let's still stay on that train. What were some of the things you had to learn in school, and how important are those in what you're doing now?
Well, university was specific for what I wanted to do. So you go in typically with the expectation to become a registered dietitian, but not always. You can also go into food research. You can go into advertising, or you could go into science and research and literature on the topic of nutrition or food or whatever it is. There's a lot to it, but for me, it was definitely going right into becoming a registered dietitian. And
Mm,
in school, it is a Bachelor of Science in Applied Human Nutrition is the actual name of the course, and it was a 4-year program. And the most important aspect of it was chemistry, because nutrition in our bodies is biochemistry.
yeah, I can't
You don't
stand
like
chemistry.
biochemistry?
No, although I like when they make you mix chemicals and the colors change. That's always nice.
Yeah. So titrations, most likely in that case.
Yep.
But yeah, it's very heavy in terms of science and chemistry. What was really interesting was that we got to take electives. So I think that the electives really gave me the extras that I could do to propel me in the right direction, if you will. So I took psychology courses, I took business courses, I took some women's studies. I just think I was able to take some courses that well-rounded the science background to make it a little bit
Mm.
more social, as opposed to like, this is what you're supposed to do, because that's because humans were complex,
Yep.
and we don't work in a sense of this is what you're supposed to do,
Mm.
because who likes to be told what they're supposed to do? I mean, that's pretty clear. So the well-roundedness of the program, I think, for me was really helpful,
Mm.
just in terms of getting everything that I felt that I needed at the time to become a registered dietitian. The other side of that as well was that in the program, especially year 3 and 4, most of the research that we did was what we wanted to do. So I was and still
Oh.
am heavily into local foods, seasonal foods, mindful eating, all those things. I think that were a little bit more rare a decade ago than they are
Mm-hmm.
now. So the trendy things and all the talk about fads and all that, I was always really interested in that kind of stuff. So I think because it was such a self-directed couple of years, I was able to say,
Mm.
you know what, this is actually a really interesting area of research, and I kind of stuck to that as I move forward, and still am interested in those kind of more strange, more abnormal areas in the field, essentially.
Mm. 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 And so, you finish school, you get all this knowledge, and then you took that break. What now spurred you on to start Eat Well? It was Halifax first, and Eat
It
Well Nova
was, yeah.
Scotia.
Yeah, it was. I started consulting in 2013. So that was like knowing that I was going to become registered. I never had any interest in working for or under somebody, and the reason for that is because there's a lot of policies and drama involved when you work for the medical system in itself. You're under it. You're under their schema of nutrition and
Mm-hmm.
health, and I just don't fit in personally with what they're offering. So it was very important for me to do my own thing. I had worked for a little market in Halifax for quite a long time, and they allowed me to actually start consulting out of the store and in
Oh.
the office. So that was the beginning. And then a couple years later, I joined a wellness team in Halifax, and I've been on board with them since 2015. So
Mm.
6 years now. I've been with that crew, and a fantastic workplace space for my office. It
Mm.
was around 2018 probably that I expanded from Eat Well Halifax to Eat Well Nova Scotia,
Mm-hmm.
because I took the mindset that people across Canada, not across Canada, and across Canada, but people across Nova Scotia really do need some help.
Mm.
We all need some help. Communities need help, not just individual people, but everyone across our province is it's a really scary place to be in terms of health.
Mm.
We are actually leading in most healthcare concerns, if
Oh
not
wow.
second behind someplace behind Newfoundland or Nunavut in some manners. But in saying that, we are top three for cancers, arthritis, diabetes, everything, metabolic
Mm.
syndrome. All of we're right at the top of the list for most of these
Mm.
things. So what's going on across our province? So that's why I expanded to Evil Nova Scotia.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but like, what do you think is
Mm.
the reason behind that?
Oh,
Like,
that's a
why
good
we
question.
rank so high?
Mm. Okay. So a lot of some of my answers are going to be factual, and some of them are going to be what I think. So
Mm-hmm.
just to keep that in mind, that not all of this is necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm.
Factual ones would be that Nova Scotia is spread apart and it's community driven. So you drive a long time to get to each individual community. Outside of Halifax being the only city and it being condensed, everything else in Nova Scotia is spread out, and you need resources across our province to do anything, to go to the grocery store. We've got a lot of food deserts. We have a lot of poverty in Nova Scotia.
What are food deserts?
Food deserts are areas where there's no access to food and healthy food. So
Oh.
for many people, their only space to get food is at a convenience store. Or they have to drive 20 minutes to get to a grocery store. Or they have no markets around. Food deserts are like, for example, Gottingen Street in downtown Halifax is a food desert. Where do you go get groceries if you live on Gottingen Street?
Yeah, you actually have to go to the Sobeys down in. Yeah, that is
Food
actually
desert.
true.
Yes. So automatically within a city in Halifax, there is a disadvantage for people to eat healthy because they
Hmm.
do not have access to healthy food. There's a couple markets around. There's some marts like, what is it, TT's Mart or TJ's Mart, I believe. But there's not really much, and that's within Halifax. You can imagine that within the city,
Hmm.
as giving such a strong example. Imagine outside of the city that food deserts are just, they're rampant all
Hmm.
across. Cape Breton is its own food desert. They like in itself, right? Like a lot of the places in Cape Breton, they have co-ops as their option for grocery stores, and they're just not having access to the healthiest food possible.
Hmm.
Again, poverty is the reason why we see so much illness, because it is expensive to eat well, because pop and chips are $1.99 and healthy food is more than that. Essentially, it's just pretty clear. It's clear. There's a lot of resources that we're lacking here in Nova Scotia.
Hmm.
Some other things, we just don't have community incentives the way that we really should, in terms of connecting everyone to health. It's getting better. It's getting better, but the NSHA is not. They're not strong in preventing illness at all. And
Hmm.
and communities don't have access to resources that they should, the level of resources that they should, in order to prevent illness by living a healthy lifestyle. It's getting better, and I definitely do want to make that clear, but it's still not very good, especially here in little old Nova Scotia, kind of the bottom of our giant country. Another thing I think is pollution. We are getting pollution coming up from the States. We're getting pollution in the water. We do a lot of spraying of our forests with herbicides, of course. That's a huge concern here in Nova Scotia. We have a big agricultural center, of course, Annapolis Valley. Lots of spray going on there, so lots of pollution there as well. There's a lot of concerns.
Yeah. Well, I guess, when you're just like leaving and you don't pay attention to those things,
100%.
it doesn't make sense until someone mentions it. I'm like, I'm making a documentary on Gordigan Street, and like that didn't even occur to me because, like, you have like the donut shops and like
Sure you
but
do.
like there's no grocery store. Like
There's two donut shops.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Which is great, but I love
so
donuts.
You didn't want to, kind of be in the system.
No.
And then when you started your consultation in that food market, did you have that name, Eat Well, or?
No.
Okay.
Nope. I was just under my name more than anything at that point, just getting started. Geez, I didn't have a website. I didn't have anything. I wasn't even on Facebook. I joined Facebook in 2015, and that was so that I could get a profile on Facebook to become part of social media. It really wasn't something that I did back when I was younger, and it was not something that I was interested in, but you can, don't get me wrong, you can, but to be successful in a small community such as in Nova Scotia, you do need to be present, and social media would have been a big part of that. So in 2015, not only did I develop Eat Well Halifax, but I also had gone online at that point as well. Yeah.
So, and then what was the process of setting Eat Well Halifax up, and then the process of converting it to Eat Well Nova Scotia?
What was the process?
Mm-hmm.
Or did you say what was the point, or what was the process? Sorry.
Process.
Not much. I had a web designer, and I had this person like didn't branding, but they just did like the label of like Eat Well Halifax. So I had actually just contacted that person and said, is there any way you can just take that exact same name and make it into Eat Well Nova Scotia, or Eat Well NS is typically what it's called. And that was not an issue at all. And then my website, I had just branded a little bit more by changing my colors and making it a little bit more specific to this is my brand, as opposed to just being Eat Well Halifax. So when I had made the transition to Eat Well Nova Scotia, I had actually did more of a rebranding as well, like as the time had gone on. It's actually really easy to be a consultant, because all you need is Zoom or a phone, and you need knowledge, and you need to advertise yourself that I'm available, or that you're available to do work. Whether you're a contractor, for whether you paint, if you do carpentry, you need your skills, you need your work set, and you need to go advertise, and you go paint houses. And you need to make invoices for people and give them receipt of payments. It was not really anything that was a whole lot of work. I think it's easier to do it than people think that it is. The hard part is getting clients consistently, because you need to be constantly, it's your job to get clients. It's what you do for a living. People don't come to you. You don't sit around all day and someone gives you a call. You work hard to keep your business running forward, moving forward. So it wasn't really in the rebranding that was the issue. Or the process wasn't the issue. It's constantly making sure that you're taking in clients, for sure. Absolutely.
And what are some things you do to get your clients coming in?
Definitely social media is a big one, of course. I'm not super in social media in terms of, like, I see some people who are posting constantly. I'm actually taking my master's right now, so between my master's and my business, social media is definitely on the bottom of my priority list. But I love it. It's so much fun. I get to share information. I love making things on Canva, and I love sharing information to the public. I love it. Not a
That is
fan of
the
Canva.
No, that's like it's not that I'm not a fan, but I've used it. I've used it. I don't know, a couple of times, but it's like I sometimes get lost. I guess it's
Mm,
just how my brain works. Like if there's just so many things, I freeze. Like what? There's just so many options there. Like give me two or three things, then I'll find my. But when it's like 10, 20, I just keep scrolling and scrolling, and it takes forever to make it. Sometimes, like if I want to make something, I'm just gonna be like the very first thing that I'm like, this is it, that's it. I don't even
I
scroll down.
agree.
Like Canva has
Yeah.
so many options, and that's cool for some people. But just how my personality is, like I
Mm.
like the less the better for me.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. I keep it pretty simple. Like I'm certainly no um, designer and I'm not very creative in any manner. So I do keep it simple. I think really for me what's exciting about social media is getting to share information to a lot of people and hoping that people are interested in what I'm saying, but also making sure that what I'm giving are what people are looking for. So staying ahead of trends and fads, and making sure that that what I'm offering is going to be helpful for people, and not adding to the confusion of the information that's already available on the internet. It's a confusing world if you're looking to try to take
Mm.
care of yourself. The internet is the worst place to go to, which is which is really interesting because that shouldn't be how it is, of course, but.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned social media, and like especially lately in the last couple of years, I'd say, body positivity is like front and center.
100%.
And then do you ever have people misconstrue what you do as like against body positivity?
Yes, absolutely, for sure. Um, oh my, I want to be so careful what I'm saying here. When it comes to illness, chronic illness, chronic illness. When it comes to chronic illness, not just illness, but there's a huge variety of factors that are at play. Many, 10 plus factors are at play. And that's if I keep it simple. Because then you can get into the little nitty gritties of each factor in its own. So it's kind of like an umbrella. When we think of our body size, sometimes it absolutely has a role in the onset and progression of chronic illness. It doesn't always. It doesn't for
Mm-hmm.
every single person. It depends on a lot of things. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just dependent on, if I look at somebody and say that person is of this size, they're at an increased risk of illness. That is not true. But it's also not true to say there is no link between your body size and illness. So it's almost like a pull and push in that
Mm-hmm.
area. You can't say that body size has nothing to do with it. But you have to be so careful that if somebody came to me about illness, to be very clear, I don't even think we talk about weight. Unless this person really wants to talk about weight, which is fine. But usually, like, it's not even part of my health history. I don't even talk about weight in my health history. They're not even asked what their weight is. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't have some kind of a role in some way for many people. I would be lying if I said that that was the case, right? But there's a lot more
Mm-hmm.
to it than that. I'll give an example. There was a study done recently of, now this is a little bit more convoluted because this is talking about some of the risk factors to type 2 diabetes. One of them is actually toxins, or I say the word toxins, but toxins that live in our fat cells. So, for example, we come into contact with PCBs every single day. We come into contact with plastics. We breathe in pollutants. A lot of the fat cell pollutants do have a role in the onset of illness. Over time, constant exposure to toxins do have a role in the onset of type 2 diabetes. So in this particular study, the question was, the onset of type 2 diabetes, was it related more to obesity, or was it related more to the toxins that accumulate and cause damage to our cells, for example? I have to be so careful in how I word things. But so what had happened was that there was this place in the world where type 2 diabetes was on the rise, but obesity wasn't on the rise.
Oh.
So then the question was, well, how come these people over in North America who are obese are have onset of type 2 diabetes, but then you automatically think, okay, type 2 diabetes related to obesity. But then in this study, they went over to this country who was seeing a increased rate of type 2 diabetes onset, but they were discovering that there was no change in weight. But what they also discovered was that this was a town that was just developing and becoming a lot more affluent. So there were more factories, there was more pollutants. So they tested the blood of the people who were in this area for toxins and serum levels and urine levels of toxins, and they were actually very, very high in certain levels of toxins. And the question was it the pollution and the toxin buildup in their bodies that is actually related to the onset of type 2 diabetes and not obesity? Then they also found that the people over here also had high levels of toxins too, who were obese and had type 2 diabetes. So that's where I'm making that link between North America and this country. And then it was discovered, wait a minute, there's something in between obesity and type 2 diabetes, and it could be one of 10 to 20 different things, including the accumulation of toxins in our cells that are causing damage, for example. So that's an example as to where, although there is a play of obesity, it's strictly not related to type 2 diabetes unless there are other factors at play too, for example.
And I think the whole thing, especially with social media, is that people throw blanket statements. If you're this, it's because of this. But there are nuances, right?
Yes, exactly. Yep, and it's confusing when you're sitting there and researching and things are being thrown at you. Don't do this, do that. That's important. That's not important. It's confusing to every single person, probably, who's wanting to make changes but not sure where to start, or is wondering, does this matter or does that matter? It's very, very, very hard to figure out what to do when we're seeing consistent, just that's good, that's bad, this is black, that's white. It's everything is a yes or no, as opposed to what about everything together, where everything plays a role in our health, not just this, not just that, right? So I still get, is coconut oil good for me? Like, oh my God. I spend my whole life trying to tell people that it's a huge, convoluted problem. Coconut oil is not going to solve nor cause problems. It's just the reality.
So let's just get into the nitty gritty then. I see your website. I'm like, okay, because you kind of have a list of things that are like IBS and things like that. And I'm like, okay, I place a call. I want to come in. What happens from there?
So I usually offer a free 15-minute phone call, and that's just to make sure that my services are appropriate for the person or for the situation.
Would your service not, like, in what type of situation wouldn't it be appropriate?
Would my services not be appropriate? Well, I've got a personality, and we need to match personalities. That's pretty clear, I think.
Yeah.
The potential client would need to be open-minded to options that are outside of the black and white medical model that we have. That's not everyone. As soon as I say things like supplements, that can block somebody right away to my services, of course. Which is, you need to match with somebody, you need to blend with somebody, it needs to make sense. Like, it's back and forth. It's not just me or just them. It's, is our conversation fun and exciting and,
I didn't know supplements was like a deal breaker for some people. I thought, it's just
an example for sure.
Okay, cool. So we have the 15-minute call, and our personalities mesh, and then what?
Then we'll book in for an initial, and most of the time my consults are on Zoom or by phone or in person at my office in Halifax. Just one day a week I offer in-person consults. And the first is 60 to 75 minutes because for about 30 to 40 minutes we're going to fill out a initial consultation form or health history form. And in filling that
How
out,
huge is the form?
it's not that long, except for that we get into conversation during filling out the form.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I mean we talk like it's building a story because health is so complex. I need a story. What happened here? Why did that happen? Did that happen with that? You know, what do you do now? What did you do back then? It's complex. So one thing you're never going to get out of the black and white medical model is time with your healthcare professional. They
In
don't
what
learn
way?
much about you. They don't ask anything about you. So you don't go into a 15-minute conversation with a physician and you guys are talking about your lifestyle or how much you exercise. It's not talked about. Definitely not.
Okay, well, yeah. So it's more like, okay, this is probably what is wrong with you, and
Here's this.
okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's so the process of our medical model is it's a diagnosis to treatment lineage. This is what you have. This is how you're treated. That's it. That's what our in my services, it's nothing like that at all. In fact, we may take 5 or 6 different approaches, or take one line that kind of branches off into something else, depending on what's really going on and what's working and what's not working. There's no black and white answer to chronic illness. That's why it's called chronic. It's chronic. It's chronic and it's complex, right? It's not. It doesn't work. There's not a situation where a pharmaceutical or 5 worked for chronic illness. It doesn't exist.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so you fill in the form, then what?
Then we build our plan. This is what's happening. Usually I'll say, you know what, this or this or this may work. I'll tell them a little bit about it, and then we'll make a decision on to which one we would like to do, or which possible plan that we'd like to do. For some folks, they're going to go right into a plan and they're going to nail the plan and we're going to go step by step by step. Then you have the other percentage of the population who are like, oh, let's just start with one thing. Okay, what do you want to start? Let's start with changing breakfast. Let's start with exercise. Let's start with water intake. Let's start with making your own meals. Let's start somewhere. Where do you want to start? So depending on the person, we're going to just go right forward and everything's going to change in their cupboards and their fridge the next day. And then you have those who are like, let's just, take it moment by moment and day by day. And I think that either way is absolutely perfect. One takes longer. Of course it does. But the other one is drastic, and that's really hard to do for a huge percentage of us, to just make drastic lifestyle changes overnight. It's almost impossible for most human beings to fathom doing something like that. So the options have to be there in order for people to be successful, because it's the last thing that I want to do is cause more stress and anxiety to somebody who's already likely dealing with it due to their chronic illness or potential onset of a chronic illness. So
Wow. There's so much care involved.
it's confusing for sure.
Why, I guess, why do you care so much to put in all that effort when, like, the medical is like, okay, this isn't that, and thank you, go and take this pill, goodbye.
Why do I care so much? It affects people who I know personally. It affects everyone in our society, in our communities. Every single person in some manner, whether it's directly or indirectly, is affected by a failing medical system. That's why I care. In fact, I care drastically that these companies are multi-billion-dollar companies while our society is hurting drastically. I care very much. Absolutely. I don't know why I care. I guess I just do. I very much so.
Yeah, no, and just the passion in your voice when you're talking about it, and you're just kind of describing what you do. I'm like, when you're actually doing it, you just turn it up to 11. So I'm the one is like, okay, cool, we're throwing everything out and getting new things. Like like is that the consultation is done and everything, or is it kind of ongoing,
The
like
programs I
meeting
run,
you?
yeah, the programs I run are typically 3 to 5 consults long with the ability to check in as they'd like. So it could be, somebody may say, I'm going to check in every third month just to reiterate, to have questions, to make sure everything is going well. People are going to step back. You're going to take, not only are you going to take time where you're not eating healthy because we're human beings, you're also going to see relapses in not only your daily activity and your daily lifestyle, but you're going to see relapses in your symptoms as well, because we're human and because that's what happens. So,
Hmm.
so typically, what will happen is that somebody could be doing well for 2 years, and then they'll come back and say, "Oh, I fell back into this. I'm really feeling horrible. Let's either restart, or where can we start now?" Where you're going to likely have a different starting point than if it were 2 years ago, because you
Mm,
already know all the basics. Now you just have to get back onto it. There's
mm.
that, I guess. I don't know. I don't even remember what your question was.
No, 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 no. So, like, I guess, um, I throw out all my old whatever I was eating,
Yes.
and then I get this new
Right.
thing, and then we're on this process, and you give me these 5 sessions, I'm checking in and
Yes. Oh,
stuff.
yes.
Um, like, how do I guess, how do I quantify the change or the positive, the
Mm.
net positive change in my life over the course of these 5 consults?
There's a few different ways I'll do that. First of all, the health history in itself is a lot of symptoms. So we talk a lot about what's happening at this time.
Mm.
When we meet every single time, I go back either to the original symptoms or to the progressed symptoms. So let's just say that
Uh,
I meet somebody and they said I have bloating every single day. Then 1 month down the road, we meet for the second time. Last time we talked, you had bloating every single day. Can you tell me
oh,
how it's changed? And then we may do it in that way. For those who go on the what I would say is the most strict plan, which is an elimination diet detoxification plan that moves into a lifestyle plan. We actually do a medical symptom questionnaire where they're quantifying their symptoms, and then the changes of the symptoms in terms of severity and occurrence and how often it happens, they're changing.
oh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
maybe, yeah.
So yeah, like when I came in, my tummy used to hurt 5/10 or ten
Yep.
over ten, and
Yes, that's
now it's like
correct.
6/10,
That's
and now
right.
it's 2/10. Then I know it's working, right?
Yes, or not working.
But like but like, do you ever get situations where it's working, 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 and then it doesn't work
All the
anymore?
time.
Or yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
So
of
what
course.
happens in that situation?
Well, a lot of things could happen in that situation. Maybe they completely fell off the plan. That's a big one. Happens all the time. We're human. I cannot separate that what we're going to do in our day-to-day life is related to the fact that we are human. One of the
Mm,
reasons that the medical model works in the sense of people going to it is that it's easy. Here's your pharmaceutical, take it every single day. That is much easier than every single day you need to watch what you eat. That is a tough thing to do your whole life. It's easier to prevent chronic illness than it is to treat it. And that's a very important thing to keep in mind when we're moving about our day-to-day life.
okay, so
Um,
yeah,
I was
go
going to,
on.
like, other reasons why they may take those step backs are illnesses. They get a virus. They may end up actually being sick. Maybe they get an injury, so they can't be physically active anymore.
Mm,
Maybe a family member passes away, so now they have all this stress and sadness, and their emotions have changed drastically.
mm,
Maybe they moved, so now they're in a whole different community and they have to rebuild a full routine. There's a
mm,
many reasons why people take a step back. Absolutely, of
mm-hmm.
course,
So you mentioned prevention is better than the reverse.
absolutely.
What are some things that people can, listening, watching, can do to prevent getting, to the chronic state? Like some basic things.
Yeah, so basic things would be your diet, eating less processed food and more whole food, making sure that your meal options are colorful and fibrous and whole foods and satiating and lots of fats and say healthy fat, but I don't like that term, and herbs and spices and vinegars and citrus and just flavor and abundance in your meals. That's an excellent way to treat your body well, as abundance in your food options as opposed to bland, boring, starchy. There's so much more to food than that. In fact, food should be celebrated, not restricted, and you don't want to torment yourself with the food that you're taking in. Another basic way of preventing illness is moving your body. Go outside. Like you can do, no matter who you are, there's some way you can move your body. If you only have access to moving your upper body, there's lots of different ways you can move your upper body. You can lift weights. You can do chair or seated yoga moves. There's no lack of ways to move your body, and you got to find something that works for your situation. That's another one. And then staying hydrated is another one. Water, water, water. Cannot stress the importance of drinking water. It's sleep. Taking care of your sleep routine. Going to bed at a decent time. Quality sleep is important. Those things are, to me, basic. But they're not basic. They just sound basic. But
yeah, because I want to stay up and watch TV.
I know that, but so do we. Okay, we all do.
So, with the program you do, when a person gets to, say I want to lose weight for myself, not for anyone else, I come through, start the program, and then I get to the weight I wanted to get to. Is that it? Like, are we done? Is it a relationship that has like a end date, or is it like an ongoing thing?
I have plenty of people who I've been seeing for a very long time. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not one to push. I'm not going to message everyone and say, hey, I haven't seen you in 6 months. I think as an adult, we have a responsibility to take care of ourselves. And I'm always going to be at the other end of an email or a phone call. I'm never not going to be. That's what I do for a living. In fact, it's my passion to do it. I'm not going to push or tell anyone they have to meet me again. They don't want to work with me. That's fine. But we have to take control of our own health. It's clear. And we do have the ability to do so for the most part, for most of us. And some of the relationships I've developed with clients have been ongoing for a very long time. Some of them aren't. I have no control over that. But I do my best to make sure that whoever's on the end of the line in some manner knows that I will always be a resource if they're interested in having me as part of their healthcare team, whether it's today or 5 years down the road. I hope that I'm doing this forever, in fact. So absolutely. Yeah. That
is really super cool. When you find something you love doing and you're pretty good at it, it's work, but it's fun at the same time. Exactly. And in your case, you are literally saving lives, like literally. So that is really, really cool. Nicole, I'm really excited and happy you're giving me your time. But before you go, what are 2 things you think, like just in general, people should do when it comes to eating well?
It's hard to give 2. Increase your vegetable intake. Absolutely. Increase your vegetable intake. Every single day we should be eating vegetables in some format. That's such old school nutrition to say too. Eat more vegetables, but it's so true. You know what? Of all of the crazy fads and trends that have lasted in our society for the last 60 years, the only thing that started and remains true to this day is eat vegetables. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. You can't even probably give me another example of something that continuously remains true every single time a new guide comes out or research comes out. That's the only thing that I say is eat more vegetables. The other thing is don't be hard on yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. Restriction and not allowing yourself to enjoy food is the enemy for us as human beings. Food is meant to be something that we love and that we look forward to. And the more that we restrict, the hungrier we are. It's a clear lineage consideration is if you starve yourself or you restrict yourself, the hungrier you are for everything. Cravings, all foods, you are going to completely destroy your life if all that you think about is food because of the restriction that can come with it at sometimes. So my two pieces of advice are eat more vegetables and love food. It's part of our culture. It has always been. It's part of our celebrations. It's part of our life. We do not have any choice but to eat. So love it, learn to love it, and learn to just be open to everything and trying new things, and no reason to restrict it. You're going to end up way worse off than if you don't. Guaranteed.
Okay. I need to eat my veggies. All right. Thank you, Nicole.
You didn't want that to be the answer for some reason. So.
I was like, I don't know.
She's going to say anything else.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna have you come on because just now, literally at the end of the show, the fasting, for some reason, fasting is a fad that's new now, and I'm curious about it. Like, I'm guessing with your experience and with your knowledge, you will have a better knowledge of talking about that. So it'll be great to have you come back and we'll talk about fasting.
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. I'll send an invite. Thank
Please
you
do.
so much. And
thank you so much,
I
Israel.
can't wait to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for thinking of me when you were doing these interviews. I had a blast today, so I would love to come back for sure.
One last thing. Where do people check you out?
So Eat Well Nova Scotia is my website, and it's my Instagram, and Facebook, I believe, is still Eat Well Halifax. Or you could just use my name, Nicole Marchand, and probably any of those you'll end up coming up with my name in some way.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Israel.